city council member, but an applause for her, please. And certainly the gentleman running for U.S. Senate in an incredibly important race. I mean, who is enemy number one besides the guy who's already out of office? That's Ted Cruz, and Roland Gutierrez is going to get his ass. Look, I called around this morning. I called some of my friends in the ledge. I said, Domingo Garcia called me and said, hey, I want you to go give a legislative update for the special session at least, because of some of these dangerous bills. And certainly you guys have all heard about the vouchers, and you guys have heard about this, everything that they're trying to do on the border. And this is all Governor Abbott, okay? So multiple members, I said, how would you give an update about what's happened in the special session? They both said the same thing. You know what they said? They said, it's a shit show. No other way to put it. It really is. You guys, right now, you have Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, which Roland has had to, work with him. We're in that body, in the Senate body for so long, and he can tell you about what it's like over there. Roland is one of the very few, if not the only senator that has stood up time after time after time to Dan Patrick. Yeah, you can applaud. Yeah. When other members have sat by and said, I better not speak up, I better not get too loud, because if I do, I might get my budget cut, I might not get a chair, I might not get a position of leadership. He knows what I want, and it's going to get taken away. Very rarely, if you watch the Senate, do you ever see someone stand up and stand up strong. Rather, what you see is, thank you for your comments, sir, thank you. And they sit there and thank each other despite the fact that they're working against one another. But I'll tell you who's working harder against one another. It's not just Dan Patrick against Roland Gutierrez and the other Democrats. It's the Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker of the House, and the Governor. They have all three leadership positions. They control all the houses, and they simply cannot agree. Y'all saw our first special session that we went back on our property taxes and how to return some of this money to the citizens of Texas, and they could not agree on how to do it, to the point where we had to have 2 special sessions to agree. Now we're in this fight where Dan Patrick and Dave Phelan, the Speaker of the House, are arguing about who's a surfer and who's not. They're making fun of one another, and it's all because of Ken Paxton. This show, where we just went to the House last week, and Lon Burnham, our former state rep, y'all give him a hand for his 18 years of service as well. He's now working in John Bryant's office. He can tell you that we were in the House, and the House really did nothing. We were waiting for the Senate to bring over their versions of this voucher bill, which is, you guys know it as the Education Savings Account. And that Education Savings Account, what it's going to do is it's going to allow students of Texas, parents of Texas, to get a credit of up to $8,000 to move their children to a private school. And they say, don't worry, this money is going to come from a separate account. We're going to set aside $500 million, and that $500 million is going to be moved towards these ESAs. And what they tell you is, that's not going to take money away from public schools. Well, someone help me understand how, if 1,000 kids move out of your school district and they take that $8,000, where is that money coming back from? Those students just simply are not going to be there in that school, which means our school districts are going to have less money, which what do you think is going to happen to our schools? They're going to close. They're going to close. So Rose, you know that. Thank you for your years of service as well. Rose Herrera here, sitting right in front. So these guys, I mean, I'm a small business owner, as y'all know, and think about what happened to us since the pandemic. In 2019, we saw less people at work, people staying home, less products being created, and therefore the cost of those products went way up. People got the stimulus, so they had more money, they spent more money, right? So there was a greater demand for this. That's how a lot of this inflation started. As someone in the construction business, I can tell you, construction was booming during that time. So these costs went way up. So we had $30 billion more money, $32 billion more money this last session, folks. $32 billion. And they're arguing about how to spend it. And instead of spending money back in our public schools, they're taking it out and putting it in private schools to please their people. And think about all of you in this room, every single one of y'all have fought, along with Domingo and along with these two people sitting here, to engage more people to get out and vote and to get registered and do this. We're the people on the ground. We're the ones doing the work. And how many times have you heard it's not going to make a difference? How many times? And now we're seeing our public schools being fully dismantled. And it started, and people that have been in the fight for a long time, Von Vern, I mean, you know this, Rose, because of your time on the school board. They have been discrediting our public schools over and over and over again to say that teaching Latinos about Latino history is a crime almost. To teach black kids that slavery wasn't real. To tell them that what they're learning is to teach white kids that they're racist. That's not what's being taught. Discredit public schools. Oh, wait a minute, these books are pornographic. They're teaching your kids wrong. Yeah. They're bringing drag shows into public spaces, into libraries. It's all to discredit public schools, to make parents scared to have their kids in public schools. So that they can believe this is a good idea. It is a horrible idea. I had a school teacher, a grandma, come in my office yesterday, and she literally brought in her cane, and she was holding that cane. She goes like this. She says, "Are you going to vote for that voucher program?" She literally picked up her cane, and she says, "If you do," she goes, she puts her cane down, she goes, "I may not use my cane," she goes, "but I use this knuckle sandwich if you vote." It was hilarious. But it's not a laughing matter. It really is not a laughing matter. When you guys are out there doing your work, I mean, Lee Saldivar, thank you, Lee, for all your work in LULAC for so many years as well. Lee Saldivar said, "You better piss these people off today." And I said, "I don't think these people need to be pissed off, but maybe we just need to be re-energized." And when Domingo talks about these bills, and make no mistake, they are coming after us as a Latino group. They're using this border crisis as the #1 emergency item so that they can continue to talk about the invasion. They haven't used that word in these bills, but in the special session they used words like invasion, Mexican cartels. And yes, we know that there's a crisis on the border. Yes, you can see the people lining up on the border, but for those of you that haven't been there, go there. I know Roland has been there. Yes, we have border walls, and yes, there's places where there's openings, and these people are coming across at that place to plead asylum. So does it look like it's a line? Yes. Does that mean that they're just letting them right in? No. Do we have enough judges to listen to their cases? No. So what happens to these people that have been walking so far? They're not going to try to get across here illegally? Yes. So the bills that we have that they're putting forth now, and they know that there's going to be Supreme Court challenges, is going to be, make it a felony if you cross the border. If you operate a stash house, instead of 2 years, we're going to go 10 years. If you cut somebody's fence as you're walking across the border, now we're going to put you in jail, and we're not even going to give you a right to a trial. All of these things are going to be paid for by whom? Every single one of us. Every single one of us. So our county jailers, our county judges that are saying, "State, why do you keep pushing this back off on us?" They've been talking about unfunded mandates forever. We are not going to continue to be able to pay for this, but as long as we have a governor that wants to run for president, even though he knows he has no chance, they're going to continue to try to be the hardest on immigration, the hardest on Latinos, all the while not paying attention to the fact that we are who are creating all the jobs. How many of us are business owners in this place? Right? How many of us are creating jobs? We are the economy of Texas, and we have to make sure that our people know that when these bills are being pushed forward, it's an attack on all of us, not those that are U.S. that are not U.S. citizens, but it's an attack on every single one of us, and we're not receiving the credit that we deserve. So look, am I out of time yet?
Nope.
Okay. Yes. Yes. No. Hey man, I get pissed off. I sat next to Victoria in the Abbey all year long. And I saw Schaefer and Ryan Guillen, and Victoria Nave, to her credit, was only the second ever Mexican-American legislative chairwoman ever in the history of the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus. Yeah. Only Irma Rangel had ever served as chairwoman of the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus, and Victoria Nave, who is from Dallas, from the Mesquite, Garland area, está chiquita pero poderosa. And I mean, I'm telling you, in a very, very real way. She's a poker player in the sense that members would go there and think that they were going to run over her, and she just pulled the wool right out of the rug right out from under them, time after time after time. So killing these bills is going to be difficult because this is special session and the governor controls the agenda 100%. He tells us what we have to do, but I have full faith in the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus. I have full faith in our chairwoman that we did everything we had to do to kill those bills during session. And it was difficult to kill those bills. I mean, they had the Border Protection Unit because they know that they cannot continue to send the Texas National Guard down the border. They know that they are spending a ridiculous amount of money with sending DPS troopers to just sit on the border to supposedly assist CBP. They're not doing anything. Again, if you go down there, you'll see just trucks idling, not moving. Those beautiful Suburbans sitting all around, not doing anything. They wanted to create a unit of vigilante forces with no official licensure as law enforcement officers. And then give them the same immunity that law officers have. Think about the terror that would have created. This is how egregious their bills are and the attacks are on that community. And I'm sorry if you don't like what's happening at the border, but one thing that we have to remind people is the only reason why people come to that border is two reasons. Can anyone tell me the two reasons why people come to that border? They're hungry or they're scared. Yeah. They're hungry or they're scared for their lives. And who here is going to say that they're the type of Christian, the way they are, that they're not going to be supportive of those people? I'm sorry, but I'm not that type of Christian. I know that we can not necessarily house them all, but we can help them find housing, even if it's temporary housing. We can give them shelter until their country gets put back into place. And God knows that we have the resources to support them in their home countries. That's what Biden has been trying to do through Title VIII. We can tell them stay at home, find a place, and then come when we can afford to let you in so that it's an orderly process. And I know that Roland Gutierrez can tell you all about what the options are and the fact that they've been neglecting those options and not really focused on how to support these folks. So, look, again, I can't go on and on. I just hope that y'all are paying attention. So, whether you read your news, or whether you go down, or whether you're coming to the Chorizo Menudo breakfast, or whether you're staying informed and reading your elected officials' newsletters, please participate. Read the newsletters. Right? We put one out at RamonRomeroJr.com. Look it up. Join our newsletter. Go down to Austin. Read the Texas Tribune. Listen to NPR. Listen to unbiased media. We have to have an informed community. And the last thing, if you're hanging with your boys and your girls, if you don't know if they're registered to vote, you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem. If you see people and you're not voting on the first day of voting, I'm sorry, you're part of the problem. If you drive by and it says vote aquí, vote here, and you don't take a picture of it and put it on your social media that I already got it done, I'm sorry, you're part of the problem. We have to have an urgency about it that we're gonna actually get it done. It pisses me off. I'm sorry that it took us till 2023 to have our second Latina, our first ever Latina on the city council. And yes, Fort Worth, you performed this time and we got it done. So, sometimes you just need a little bit of momentum to get you moving. So we're moving. We're going in the right direction. Thank you, Carlos Foreman, for all the years of your service as well. Thank you for serving here. So I'm not trying to point my finger at anyone in particular. I'm just saying we can always point at ourselves first and say, what more can I do? Y'all know that, like, hey, since I got elected, I've been doing everything I can to return as much of my campaign resources. We're going to have our biggest fundraiser of the year, November the 3rd at Rockwood Golf Course. We're going to try to raise $100,000. Last year we raised right around $60,000. And all that money after we paid for the golf course, it went back. Joey Drogo, thank you, Joe, for everything that you've been doing, for your scholarship fund, for your turkey giveaway, all the different things. If y'all don't know Joe, y'all need to go over and shake this man's hand because Joe's been doing great work. He came into my office and said, you're going to give me some money. And we did. We did. So, all right, I'm going to stop now because I know you're going to come to listen to me. Thank you again, Domingo, for everything. Y'all stay informed. I'll be back, and I'm going to be asking a lot of questions of what y'all have been doing. Y'all going to have to give me some good answers.
Any questions? Any questions for Ramon?
This will be the first time no one asked a question. Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for the representation that you did this past year.
Thank you.
The fact that we had all that excess money, surplus money, you know, that didn't go to the education and all that. I can tell all of y'all right here that since 1999, our Latinos have been in the plus so far as attendance in our public schools. That's over 20-something years ago, guys. Every year we're in the plus. You know who's in the minus? The whites. And the blacks are trying to hang in with us. Again, we're 65% of the total public school attendance of Latinos. When they attack the schools and everything, they're attacking you. And that's why you need to go out there and go vote. I'm telling y'all need to go out there and go vote. We're over 40-something percent of the total registered voters and everything, but we only make up what, like last week. You know, we found out 1% of the people over here in the Metroplex. We have over 500,000 registered voters that are Latinos. But get this, we only make up 1% of those that go out there and go vote. We're not representing ourselves. It's time for us to get up off our asses, off our seats, off our couches and all that. Leave the cell phones alone and go out there and go vote. And I'm going to vote for you guys. I'm going to vote for Robert. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I want to say one thing. I did bring up the vouchers a second ago, and I didn't really talk about the threat that the governor made. And I want you to think about what he's telling his fellow Republicans. He told fellow Republicans, you vote for vouchers or we'll see you at the ballot box. I mean, he's telling his fellow Republicans, vote for vouchers or we'll see you at the ballot box. He's saying, I'm going to come after your head. One of the things that he did that I think that all of you should know in the Senate, and hopefully Roland can touch on this, is in the House, we put money for teacher pay raises during the regular session. It didn't get funded. And then he says, pass my voucher bill, and then I'll add to the call teacher pay raises. So you think about how you would feel right now if you were a teacher, and he's saying, first I'm going to take money out of your schools, and then I'll give you money back on your own so he can continue to vote for me.
Thank you very much. A growing number of Latinos, especially along the Rio Grande Valley and the border, are voting more and more for Republican and the anti-Hispanic, anti-Latino, anti-immigrant causes. What can we do to educate them and let them know the truth behind these bills?
Well, I'm not from the Valley, so I can't speak directly to them, but I can tell you we made a huge mistake in 2020 by not knocking on doors because of COVID. The Republicans absolutely knocked on doors. And so if you were a campaign worker, if you were a poll worker back then, and suddenly the Democratic candidates said they weren't going to hire you, you think you didn't need that job? Of course you did. And those folks went and worked. So when somebody knocks on your door, and it's Ramon that knocks on your door, and suddenly he says, well, don't vote for those Democrats anymore. Hey, vote for this Republican guy. Or they may not even tell you they're Republican. They just told you the name. Don't vote for Ramon, vote for Maria. Right? You believed them because you knew that person. And here's another thing. Look, our messaging just has to get better as Democrats. When you have Trump, they put in these massive billboards, and it says, Trabajo, empleo, Trump. He's taking credit for all those jobs, and in this case, he had those billboards all over the Eagle Ford Shell, which was all these oil and gas jobs. So you got a lot of Latino males, and I'm glad that you asked the question as a male, Latino, because I'm going to say it once again, we're the main part of the problem. Males are voting Republican way more than females are voting Republican. Latinas are Latinos, okay? Latinos are voting Republican way more than Latinas. I mean, you're not going to fool a lady. I don't know why we're so gullible, you know? But there was a piece that was sent to me by Congressman Henry Cuellar, and that's exactly the name of the piece. It was Latino gullibility after the 2020 election. And it's like we trust the people that come to our door. And I'm sorry, the Democratic Party was a part of the problem. They should have made sure that we went to the door. Even right now, if you go through the Permian Basin, and again, they're doing it by way of industry, right? You'll see a big billboard. I hate to say it, it's a powerful billboard. It's all black, it's oil black. You can't even tell what it is, and you see this little light coming out of the side, and it's Donald Trump. And you know what it says? Drill, baby, drill. And he's establishing himself as the pro oil and gas candidate and telling everybody, basically, I'm responsible for your jobs. Once again, it's the same thing that happens in Mexico. I'm your boss, I'm telling you who to vote for. So we have to remind our people, especially our Latinos, males, this guy's not responsible for your job. You know who's responsible for your job and your productivity? You are. Your hands, the calluses on your hands, the pain in your back. That's who they should be thanking you. You shouldn't be thanking them for your job by way of a party. Thank yourself, go do your own work. So we just need to make sure that our Latinos, especially our sons, are actually doing their own research and not just trying to join the winning team. I wore this Texas UT shirt for a reason. Because last week, you know, the UT-OU game, they split it right down the 50-yard line. There's nobody switching sides to go for the opposite team, right? They just know who they're with. And that's not the way politics should be. Because they're fooling a lot of us. They're fooling us. And a lot of Republicans, they just got the wool pulled over their heads. They're not doing the research. They want to be on that team. I'm with this guy and they don't even know what the hell's going on. So you just have to beg them to do a better job of researching. And if they say, well, I don't know, then you give them your cell number and you say, call me. And thank you for all the work you've been doing with all the young men when that's home. So thank you for all the work. I appreciate you. All right. We're done. We're turning it off.
Give me your hand, Mr. Rep, Ramon Romero. Our next speaker is here all the way from San Antonio, Texas, the former capital of Texas. And I got to meet him when I was working as LULAC national president, and the tragedy in Uvalde happened. And we had, what are we going to do about what happened in Uvalde? And we decided to set up a GoFundMe page for the families who lost their loved ones there in Uvalde. And we raised $2 million from LULAC members and supporters around the country. The average donation, $27, okay? And I saw that the state senator who represented Uvalde was helping the families and going and help them through the grieving process. And I called him up. I didn't know him. I just called him up and said, hey, Senator, can you help us? We got this money. And within about 72 hours, we knew all the families, we knew the children, and we were there in Uvalde, and we were the first organization to help the families in Uvalde. And that was because of the help of State Senator Roland Gutierrez. And for those of you who don't know him, he's a former city council member in San Antonio. He's a former state representative. He is now the current state senator from San Antonio. and he's going to be the future U.S. Senator for the great state of Texas. Let's give him a big hand to Ronald Gutierrez.
Buenos días, muchas gracias. I've got to tell you, I'm going to work on that one again. Buenos días. Domingo did call me, and he said, you know, what do we do with all this money? Do we give it to this rob fund? Those poor people in Uvalde, you and everybody across this country sent $21 million to a fund that was run by city leaders. Those people had lost their children. They had nowhere to go and nowhere to look and grieving every day. And I said, Domingo, don't give it to that rob fund because they're not getting that money till November. They lost their kids in May. The city didn't give them any of that money till November. Yes. She said, it's time. I've been there. Yes, they are. And this man, he said, hey, no worries, we'll just give him a check directly. So we got together the people that lost their children and the people and the children that were in those rooms, in the classrooms that survived. And each one of those families got an initial check of some $30,000. And then he came back and gave him another check of some $30,000 to the tune of $2 million. And this organization, LULAC, you did this, and I just want to thank you all for your generosity. Porque cuando estás de luto, you just don't, when you're grieving, you can't go to work the next day. The Attorney General of this state has a fund for victims' compensation, and where he could have given each one of those families $75,000 for being victims of crime. And you know how much he gave them? On average, $192. $192 on average is what those families in Uvalde, Texas got. Less than families in El Paso, less than Sutherland Springs, less than Midland, Odessa. And they did that because they didn't give a shit about Mexicans. They didn't give a shit about Hispanic people. And I'm sorry for cursing, and I apologize for that. But I got to tell you, there's 30 people here today. Next time I come, there's going to be 100. And the time after that, there's going to be more, because it is time that we begin a revolution of Hispanics and African Americans and poor white people that are getting screwed over in this state. And so after a while, I said, man, this is all broken. I had to sue the state to see what happened. They said, we're not going to let you see it. I sued the state, I lost. But they said, hey, you know what? We'll give you a chance to look at everything. They gave me, you signed this non-disclosure agreement, they gave me a 2 terabyte hard drive the size of my cell phone. And I saw hundreds of hours of body cam footage, of police failure and cowardice and ineptitude and lack of communication. And I saw dead children. And I saw a lot of dead children. And I saw everything that gun does to little babies. And I'm not going to take you down that journey today because it changed my life. It changed my life. And from that moment, I started looking at the world and I started seeing what was going on in this state. I said, we're broken. We're broken on guns for sure. And I own a bunch of guns. So I went into the session and I said, we need to raise an age limit so an 18-year-old doesn't buy an AR-15. Yes, you can go. We need extreme risk protective orders when someone that's mentally ill goes off and makes a threat, or someone sees something and says something, we take those guns away for a little bit to find out what's going on, like they did in Florida after Parkland. We need to close the gun show loophole. So notice I didn't say I want to take your guns away because nobody ever said that. But we couldn't even do the littlest things. The things that even Republican voters were in favor of. These Republicans that run this state, that have run this state for 30 years, didn't give a damn about those kids. And they don't give a damn about them now. And they don't give a damn about your kids. And loose Republican gun laws are killing your children. And then it happened again. It happened down the road in Allen, didn't it? And they orphaned a little boy, a little South Korean little boy. They orphaned that boy. They killed his mother and his father, and they killed his brother. Notice how they said the shooter killed him. Those Republicans and their loose Republican gun laws, because now everybody can walk down that street outside with an AR-15 on their shoulder, and there's not one damn thing that a cop can do about it. That is insanity. That's the definition of insanity. And those are the people that have been running this state for 30 years. And we must change that now. And the way we change that is by Latinos que se levanten la cabeza, that you go out and you fight for your life, and you fight for your right to live. And we get young people to say, man, you gotta vote. You gotta vote. And when that little kid says, no, I'm not gonna vote, that 18-year-old, those politicians don't do anything. Nothing in government's going to affect my life. You do anything you can to give them 15 minutes of your time at the polls. You take their cell phones away. It works with my kids. Whatever you need to do. Because 19 little babies and 2 teachers died because people don't vote. And Latinos need to recognize that. We are the majority in this state. Look, we're broken on everything that this state that we talk about. We're broken on this electrical grid. 800 people literally died in this state because Republicans cared more about money than people. That doesn't happen in third world countries. We have a healthcare system that digs into your pocket. 25% of your salary goes to your out-of-pocket healthcare costs. Because Republicans don't care about it. We have a governor that won't do Medicaid expansion. That's healthcare for working class people. It's not healthcare for the poor. It's for all of us that are making 30% of the poverty level. Imagine that. We would be able to insure more and more Texans so that they don't have to come out of pocket. The average family of 4 in Texas makes $48,000 a year. How are you supposed to make it when health care costs $12,000 out of your pocket? You can't. We have a broken education system in this state that they've broken for 30 years. Mr. Brandon Creighton, he's over here in Houston. He's the chair of the committee, the author of the supposed voucher bill. He said last week to us, 2 days ago, he said, we need this bill because our schools are broken, our schools are dangerous, they have fentanyl in them. I said, hey bro, do they have school shooters too? And he says, oh yeah, there's school shootings. You've been in charge for 30 years. You Republicans have been in charge of this state for 30 years. When the hell are we going to wake up and beat these people at the polls and get all our raza out to vote? Because we must. They have poor boyed our schools to nothing. We are 43rd in spending in our schools in this nation, and we are 43rd in performance. What do we expect? What do we expect? When they spend, and by the way, these are your tax dollars. We are the second highest revenue state in this nation. And where do they spend it? Yeah, they put $5 billion on the border on a bunch of crap that doesn't work. That doesn't work. You want to know, sir, what we're going to do on immigration? When I'm your U.S. Senator, and next week I'm announcing this, we're going to have a comprehensive immigration reform plan. He just likes to talk about it, gets in front of the wall, and he says, talks tough, and he talks a bunch of nonsense. Fix the problem, man. Fix the problem. If you think it's a problem, yeah, I'll tell you that it is. We need to fix it. But no president can fix it. We need Congress to create a comprehensive immigration reform plan that helps the 12 million people that are here, that have been here for 20 years, gives them a pathway to residency, a pathway to citizenship for 1 million dreamers that have been in this country for the last 15 years and beyond. and we need a jobs program because there's 30 million jobs that we can fill that Americans don't want to do in this country. We would put our economy on steroids, we would put our social security system on steroids, and we would be able to clear the border because they'd go back to their country of origin, they'd go into the United States consulate, they'd apply for a job at a Department of Labor kiosk, they'd do a background check, they'd get a bus, they'd get their bus fare, they'd get a visa, and they'd go process meat in Oklahoma or Odessa or wherever to the jobs that Americans don't want to do. See, we've been dealing with immigration for 200 years. It was the Italians and the Polish and the, hell, yesterday I told you, some lady said my grandfather was Norwegian and he did the crummy jobs when he came in. That's just the way this thing works. Nosotros, we go out, we study, we go on and get the next better job, or we do that for our children. My father was an immigrant to this country, as Domingos was, as Ramon was. And they worked their asses off to make this place a better place to live. I'm going to tell you, because of these people in power, this is no longer a better place to live for my kids. And so I decided to run for this position against this horrible man. He didn't break Texas, but he sure embodies it. Because we must make this world a better place for our children. We must make this world on health care, on education. We must have a college program. We're the only country in the world. We're the only leading country in the world. Someone told me the other day, don't say free college, you'll sound like a crazy liberal. Hey man, we're the only leading countries in the world. We're the only one that saddles a kid with $130,000 school debt that I call a home mortgage. We can pay for it with a 10-year going forward tax deduction for those kids so that they can get it 100% deducted from the taxes that they pay, and then they can actually buy a home or a condo or a car. We need to be looking at things not as they are. We have people in Congress. You have one guy running for this seat right now as well. He's your neighbor in Dallas. I get it. Este vato last week, he came out for the border wall. He's a Democrat. We cannot have people talking about nonsense solutions that don't work. We're deaf. Latinos are smart. You build a 20-foot wall, we're going to build a 21-foot ladder. And it's not about that. Fix the problem. Fix the problem of comprehensive immigration reform, because it must be done. Fix our health care problem because it must be done. All my life, growing up, my father taught me to work. Just like Ramon's father, just like Domingo's father, just like all your mothers and fathers taught you, tienes que trabajar, y si trabajas, este país trabajará por ti. And that is absolutely the truth. As your next United States Senator, I promise you just one thing. I will work harder than anybody. I will work harder than anybody to make sure that this country is better than it is today. I want to thank you. My name is Roland Gutierrez, and I want to be your next United States Senator.
Any questions? Questions from the audience? Over here.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, what up,
It won't reach.
It won't reach. I'll talk loud. I wanted also to congratulate you for running. We can't take positions if we don't have great candidates like yourself to run. So thank you for stepping up and doing that. One of the things I wanted to advocate for, and I was going to mention it also to our state representative, Ramon, is the importance of empowering our schools with school counselors. It's great that, we're fighting for teacher pay, but along with teachers are counselors. We have some very challenging mental health issues, and it's not enough to just talk about it in October, but really to support our schools with school counselors and also add them into the money. But thank you for being here.
I want to comment on that because I often talk about this. It is a significant thing when a young man goes and buys an AR-15 right after his 18th birthday at the only gun shop in town. The next day he buys 900 rounds of ammunition at the same gun shop with the same store clerk. I've seen all this video too, by the way. It's all the store footage. On the third day, he picks up his internet-bought AR-15. And nobody says, I need to call the sheriff. This kid looks odd. Something is wrong here. Nobody saw that as a significant moment because we didn't have a law that says, this looks wrong, I should call the sheriff. We didn't have a law where every kid in that school knew this kid to be the school shooter. That was his nickname. Imagínense, school shooter. Todos los huerquitos, every one of them called him school shooter. They all knew it. So no one saw that as significant. And to your point, ma'am, this is what Greg Abbott has done to you. And I hope that this next comment goes all over the internet. This is what Greg Abbott has done to you. Because Greg Abbott killed those kids.
That's right.
Just as sure as that shooter did. The average student ratio to Tier 1 counselors, which is what she's talking about. Tell me your name, ma'am.
Dora Tovar.
Dora Tovar is talking about. In this nation, one Tier 1 counselor, that's a certified MSW, LMSW counselor, one counselor for 200 kids. How much do you think the ratio is in this state? One counselor to 650 kids. That counselor would never get to even talk to the so-called school shooter ever. They'd never get to him. And they didn't get to him in Uvalde. This kid was a mess. And he had been tortured his whole life by his mother and his 7 fathers and everything. And we never, ever saw the light of day on this thing because the education system that these Republicans have owned and poor boy for the last 30 years did this to those little babies. I don't want anybody to forget that, and I will never forget those children, and I will never forget their names, and I will never stop talking about those kids. Thank you for your question. Yes, sir.
One fact is that everybody knows about the killings in El Paso, the killings over here in Dallas as a policeman. Those 2 individuals came from DFW, one from Allen, the other one from Mesquite. They were neighbors of my daughter right there in Allen. They were our neighbors in Mesquite. Somebody should have seen something and would have told somebody. There were 2-story homes that they could go in there and see the guy out there practicing. You know, getting ready to go out and shoot the policeman. Y uno de ellos, Latinos, right here, for Fort Worth. But think about that. Nobody said nothing.
Not only did nobody say anything, and I know a lot about that Allen shooter and a lot of things that I can't really say, but I'll tell you the DPS knew that this person, they had every indication to know that he was a white supremacist. After El Paso, they established a white supremacy unit within DPS, and again they failed. This kid's internet usage in Allen, this man's internet usage was full of horrible messaging. The Department of Public Safety had specific information about this man, and they failed all of us. So yes, this government in Texas, controlled by Republicans, for 30 years, has failed us time and time again. We are broken. We must end this. We must get every Latino to begin to vote and start making sure that we take the ones that don't vote and you move them out to the polls for 15 minutes. I know we have one more
One last
question.
question. Go there.
Well, that's a good question. And I'll tell you what I advocated for in the legislature. Raising the age limit, universal background checks, and extreme risk protective orders. But as your next United States Senator, I saw those videos, and I'm not going to talk about it because it's just very sad. That gun was made for Vietnam. That is the precursor, that precursor of the AR-15 of the Army Light Rifle was made for Vietnam. It fires 3 times the speed of any 9mm pistol. This kid used full metal jacket bullets that explode on impact and they tear up your insides. What they did to these little babies was horrendous, unrecognizable. We must have an assault weapons ban again in this country on that gun. I'm going to go into somebody's house and take the AR. That's not conceivable. But we must never sell them anymore in this country to civilians. We can create a ban with exceptions for ex-military, for cops. We can have exceptions even for the farmers in Texas that go up in helicopters and shoot these animals. We can have that exception because hogs, we also have the largest population of hogs in this state that are destroying our crops. So we can talk about those things, but we must have an assault weapons ban in this country. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
And if you want to know more about our campaign, go to rollingthediters.com and look them up if you want to volunteer, help, or donate. All right, I want to recognize a couple of people in the audience. We have City Council Member Carlos Flores here with us today. We have our School Board President of Fort Worth, Camila Rodriguez. Camila. And we have former City Councilwoman Elizabeth Hicks, who's running for County Commissioner. Welcome, Hicks. We have our former National LULAC President, Hector Flores, is in the house. And our new National Director for Public Policy and Foreign Advisor, Germán Trejo, is joining us. All right, I've seen a lot of resumes in my lifetime. This is a very unusual resume. It's one of the most unique ones I've ever seen. And I think it's really important because people's life story, like what Dennis was talking about, whatever your story is, whether you're first generation or whatever. But she graduated from Southwest High School here in Fort Worth. She then spent 8 years in the Army. She became a sergeant and served in Iraq, where she was in Operation Iraqi Freedom. She then came home, got her bachelor's at UTA. Then she got her master's at UTA. Then she decided to go to law school, okay, and got her law degree from Texas A&M here in Fort Worth. And then she decided to get married, have kids, and then run for city council and be elected to the Fort Worth City Council. So she is currently raising 2 children, has a 3-legged dog and a 3-legged cat, and represents District 9, Southern Hills neighborhood here in Fort Worth, Texas.
I include those 3-legged dog and 3-legged cat in my bio because everyone loves to say that part. When they introduce me, they're like, all the other stuff, that's cool, but did you know that she has a menagerie of weird animals in her house as well? Is everyone's fun fact. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Domingo, for doing this, and I really appreciate my colleagues up here and the fire that they brought to this room today. I really need you to continue to keep that fire going when you go out to the community because we've got a lot here in Fort Worth that we can really use your help on. I'm going to talk about some kind of boring stuff, but I think it's fun stuff from me and my colleague, Councilman Flores here. We just passed a historic budget here in the city of Fort Worth. We've reduced your tax rate by 4 cents, which is the largest reduction we've had since we've tracked reductions. So you feel that when you write that check. But let's be honest, we are the fastest growing city in the nation. About 20,000 people every year move to the city of Fort Worth, so that means every 5 years, 100,000 people are coming here. We have to make sure that we're prepared for them, because if we don't, that means that those of you that call Fort Worth home, that have called Fort Worth home for generations, are going to feel the squeeze. And we want to make sure that we keep Fort Worth the community that you love, while preparing for our economic growth in the future. So we really focused on that in this year's budget, and so we invested in 76 new fire positions to make sure that when you call 911, we've got someone there to answer. We have invested in new police positions for the same reason. We want to make sure that if you've got an emergency, you pick up the phone, you know someone's going to answer, and not just any police officer, but the most professional, the most well-trained police officers in the nation. It's why we invested in our training staff for Fort Worth PD to make sure that we're doing that, and that we are recruiting the best and the brightest from across the nation to come serve you in our community. So I'm really proud of that. We increased our HOPE team. Our HOPE team is the group of Florida police officers, and it's a police officer, it's a paramedic, a firefighter, and a social worker that go out and engage with the homeless community here in Fort Worth to try to find them the services that they need, and also keep them from breaking the law, and make sure that we are all living harmoniously here in our community. Homelessness is an issue on the rise here in Fort Worth. I know you see it in your neighborhoods, whether you're north side, south side, east side, or west side. We know that we are all starting to see a larger homeless population in our communities, and they're no longer just maybe on our larger corridors or larger arterials, but they're in our neighborhoods and in our parks. We recently had someone, a community center, a fire station community center, could not use their outdoor park facility because we had some folks camping out there on that. So it impacts our neighborhoods, it impacts our quality of life. But we have to make sure that the way we do it right, we do it with compassion, and we understand that because of the mental health resources that we don't see our state and Republican and government really investing in, that's how it trickles down. So when you heard them talking about how we are not addressing mental health at the state level, that's how you feel it at the city level, is folks that really just need some help, and they need stabilization so that they can get the care that they need to be productive members of our community. So we've done a couple of things to help promote that. One is the increased number of HOPE teams, right? So we're not putting our homeless in jail, we're not criminalizing them, we're getting them the help that we need. The county has invested in, and we are very supportive at the city of Fort Worth, in a mental health jail immersion center. That means when you criminalize homelessness, it's typically through criminal trespass. And what that means is they get the citation, they probably don't go to court to answer it because they don't have an address, so then that becomes a warrant. And then when they do find housing or there's a housing match, they can't get that housing because a criminal background check shows that they have a warrant, they've been to jail, and they're not allowed to live in that neighborhood. So how do we fix that cycle? What's the Mental Health Jail Diversion Center? And so along with several other offices, our Fort Worth Police Department now has the ability, instead of taking them to jail, taking them to a treatment facility where they can get the help and the care that they need. It's modeled after a Houston facility. It's only been operating about a year and a half, so we don't have a ton of statistics yet to fall back on. But we know in Harris County, if we're operating it very similarly to that model, 96% of the people that go through that facility don't come back. So that means that once they're there, they get the help they need, the likelihood that they interact with Fort Worth PD again, 96% of them we don't, so only 4 do. That's a huge success story. So we're working on things like that to make sure that we improve your quality of life. We did increase your stormwater fee, and I really want to talk about that, particularly while we're here in this neighborhood. How many of you have driven down the street and almost washed away in your car, or you've had your home or your business flood after a big rain? And that's because we have not invested in the infrastructure that we need to here in the city of Fort Worth to keep you safe. That's not something that I created or Councilman Flores created. It was a mess that was handed to us from decades of not paying attention to this problem and not investing in it. Now we're looking at it. So you did see an increase in your stormwater fee, but I want to talk to you about why that's so important. We have some major projects across the city. We can repave your road for a couple $1 million, and that's pretty easy to put in the bond. But when we start talking about stormwater, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. And so there's 3 big projects that cause us a lot of heartaches. One of them is right here, the north side, the Upper LeBeau Channel, and then we have Berry and Cleburne Street and Linwood. Those are, the Linwood project's 150 million, Upper LeBeau is, I think, 60 million, 70, 80, I don't know.
Well, close to that, current basis.
Okay, and so those are not insignificant numbers. So with the stormwater utility increase, what we're doing is 50% of that is going specifically to fund the remediation of those projects, so to keep your neighborhood safe. And I know that's something that my colleague, Councilman Flores, really worked hard with me on to make sure that we're advocating. So know that we are advocating for your safety and wellness at the city of Fort Worth, and we're putting our money where our mouth is with the budget. We just had a neighborhood quality and revitalization plan come out, a housing plan. Again,